This is it, guys. The Google Data Analytics Professional Certificate Program Capstone Case Study. We're going to review it right now. You just got to analyze stuff. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Matt Bratton here with TMBanalytics.com, your analytics career headquarters. This is it, guys. This is the final video that I'm doing in this Google Data Analytics Professional Certificate Program full course review playlist. And this one is for the Capstone. This is the Capstone project. It's a case study, and I'm just gonna go right to it, guys. Let's just jump right in. Let's get this bad boy going because I've got a lot to say. What I intend to do here is sort of walk through how they've got the Capstone, the case study structured, how I kind of work through it, how I would recommend that you guys work through it, and then I'm going to just do a brief recap of everything that's gone on in this program. So stick around and you'll get to hear my thoughts in the aggregate. But as you can see, I've already graded this bad boy. I gave it 5 stars once again. Thought they did a good job laying everything out, queuing it up, and just start to finish, this program has been generally pretty good with, a few gripes here and there, but that's to be expected. So we're going to jump right in, thing number 1, into week number 1 of this Capstone case study. And it's just saying, hey, let's learn about Capstone basics. Let's do that. So as per usual, I'm going to go over the course syllabus, make sure you got your bearings, introduce the Capstone project. We're going to talk about, they're going to get you dipping your toes in some real world portfolios, because ultimately, guys, what the whole point of the Capstone project is to give you something to walk away with that's sort of tangible, right? Everything up to this point, there's been tangible elements, but it's all just part of the course. Now, I don't want to say you're on your own, but they're really asking for you to, hey, take what you learned, put it to work, and what you're going to be left with is something that you can show off during an interview situation. That's really what they're doing. They emphasized out the gates that this thing was going to help you get a job. Well, if you've been involved in the scene for any period of time, you've talked to people, you understand sort of like the best practices or words of wisdom that people provide in order to try to land a job in this space. Having a portfolio or work that you can point to and say, hey, I've done these sorts of things and you can check out my work here. Immensely valuable because it gives the potential interviewer something to look at, to ask you about, to have you discuss with them. So that's something that they've done here, and I think that they did a really good job. It's super important and not necessarily something that a lot of courses are covering. So for that, I appreciate it. But they give you the opportunity here. They kind of walk you through, hey, this is the ins and outs of building your portfolio, setting up personal websites, or setting up a page on GitHub or a Kaggle profile. They give you examples of people's profiles and talk about how to enter competitions and start, trying to get more involved in that community where you can start to stand out and see what people do to stand out, which is really, really helpful to see. The practice quiz, again, there's no real quizzes at this point. All of it is just sort of action to, hey, do XYZ or set up this page or do this or that. You'll see it here in a minute. But so what interviewers or employers look for in data analysts. This video I thought was actually really good. I'm not going to show you the video, but Rishi here, he talks about how it's valuable to have somebody and really get a sense for how they think and what they have actual experience doing versus more theoretical, and how teachable are they, how well are they going to mesh with the team, that sort of thing. So I thought that was actually a really good 2-minute discussion there. If you're working through it, definitely check that one out. And then we got some sample cases for data analysis. So they go best in class. They talk about this is a really good example of what a finished product might look like. So again, they're kind of trying to paint this vision of, hey, as you work through this case study, this is what it could look like. They give you a checklist of, hey, this is what you should include in your portfolio if you're going to try to do a good job, like a biography, contact page, resume, your list of your accomplishments. Sounds a lot like a blown out resume, to be honest. Kind of like your LinkedIn page. And then what to include in a case study. So you're going to introduce the issue, talk about the issue, the problems, the solutions, your conclusion, and what the next steps might look like. And then examples of some case studies and questions that you might get asked, some good resources there. And then they bring up revisiting career paths in the data sphere. So these are theoretically some of the things that they're trying to like set you up to potentially do at some point in the future. But they talk about data analysts, for problem solving. What are you doing? Data scientist, data specialist, analysis. What does analysis mean in each of those spheres? And other relevant skills to have in each of those fields. They talked through this. I thought was super good. This was a really smart thing that they included. Again, trying to get you prepared for interviews or getting your name out there. But they kind of walk through typical things that you might see in a job description. So, hey, we're looking for a job description that talks about database stuff. So, hey, you might say collect data by using scripting language such as SQL. So what you could say on your resume or in an application or something or during an interview is based on what you've done during this course, right? So you've performed SQL queries, you've sorted and filtered data using SQL queries, you've converted data types using SQL functions, right? So it walks down all these different skills like data visualization, dashboarding, reporting, spreadsheets, and it shows you very common things that you're going to see in job descriptions in this space and what you can say that you learned from this program that you could put on your resume. So if you've followed this full certificate program start to finish, now you're at the point where you should be able to look at this and go, yeah, I did all that. I absolutely did all that. So that will check these different boxes. So good job on that. I thought that was really helpful. And then they give you some more resources here if you're looking for something more technical and what a different path might look like for that. And then we get into some next steps. So this is now queuing up what's to come after week number 1. But basically, this is the punchline. So you're going to do a case study. That's the Capstone project. So you can either do one of 2 pre-prepared business cases. One is on a bike sharing service, their membership base, and one is on a streaming service subscription. Or you can create your own business case for yourself to analyze from your own data source. So they kind of give you some ideas for how to do that. You're going to use that to perform an analysis, create your online portfolio, add your case study, include a link to your online portfolio in LinkedIn, and then you're going to practice your pitch for how you can talk about what you've done here in an interview situation to prepare you for eventual interviewing, right? So that's what this is all about. It gives you more resources for how to do that. And with that, that's the end of week number 1. We're going to go into week number 2. It's optional, but it's building your portfolio. So what we're doing here is introduction to building this. So it talks about how, hey, in order to complete this Capstone project, you're going to basically go through everything that we've done in this course, which is like going through the phases of an analysis process: ask, prepare, process, analyze, and share, right? Stating the business task clearly, importing data from a real data set, documenting data cleaning, analyzing the data, creating visualization, summarizing your findings, documenting your conclusions and recommendations, and then creating and publishing this case study, right? So sounds like a lot. It is a lot. It really is. So they didn't hold back on this one. I think they did a good job. So you've got 2 tracks. Track number 1 is choosing one of their pre-prepared case studies. Track number 2 is by, you basically follow this self-study path, and they give you a bunch of resources for how you can pull your own public data sets. I'm not going to talk too much about this path other than to say, if you aren't interested, if you've already got some data set in mind or some sort of question that you want to address or something like that, then Godspeed, go do it. Go find that data set. If you want to, look into COVID, or you want to look into any myriad of the things that are out there, there's so much data out there. Go for it. Go do it. Go do something original. I really appreciate that, to be honest. I think this is one of the pitfalls that I've seen. I don't know if I've talked about this in other videos, but interviewing analysts, one of the biggest issues that I come across when it comes to showing off a portfolio is unoriginal work that was done in a way that very little thought. It's more replication than actual critical thinking and execution. So what happens is you're interviewing somebody and they want to show you something that they've created, and you look at it and you start asking questions, they're not interested in it. They barely remember what they did or why. They can't go beyond pointing at what they've done and saying, well, I used this, or I did this query, that sort of thing. So it's a big turnoff. It's a big, you're building up for this like cool climax where you can nerd out and talk about something with somebody, and then it just falls flat because they copied somebody else's work. So I applaud anybody who goes this path and you've got something that you're passionate about, because what that means is when you get to a situation where you're sharing about it in an interview situation, you're probably, hopefully, going to have a better story to tell. Not to say that you wouldn't have a good story if you go with track number one and choose one of their pre-prepared. It's just a matter of being cognizant that this is an issue where people get caught up, right? They get caught up because they're just copying and pasting other people's work. They don't care about it. They don't really understand what they're doing. So it shows that you can follow instruction, but not that you necessarily understand what you've done, which is really kind of the point, okay? I think that was not a sidetrack. I think that was very in line with what we're talking about here. So if you're curious, I just kind of did the first thing that crossed my path here. I explored the bike share navigation speedy success case study. And I don't know what happens when I open this bad boy up. I forget already, but it's going to take you here, and it gives you a PDF where it's going to show you all the ins and outs of the thing. It's going to have links to all of the information that you need to download. Don't underestimate this, guys. I kind of wanted to see what I could accomplish just really quickly, pulling all the data into Excel and just kind of goofing around. Yeah, it was somewhere around 2 million rows of data spread across 12 monthly files and a whole lot of other information. So I kind of chopped it down, was just looking at a quarter, playing around, looking for inferences, things that I figured that they were trying to direct you toward. Kind of made some observations, felt like I knew where they were going with it, and sort of shut it down at that point, because I'll be honest, I didn't need to go to great lengths to do this sort of thing, right? That's not the reason that I'm taking this course, or that I took this course and pursued this thing. I did this because I wanted to see what everybody had been talking about, what Google's approach to this thing was, how I could take this and better understand it, and have conversations with analysts who are interested in the program, be able to give my honest opinion on what you're going to encounter in this program. So I got some look at this. I didn't really do much of this else. I've done my own case studies and things with public data in the past, so this isn't anything new to me. So then we're going to dive into track number one. So it just gives you the whole rundown, stuff to read about. What are the questions? How is this going on? Lots of PDFs. So they didn't necessarily put a lot of the specifics in here. They wanted you to go in and get the PDFs and dig in and treat it like a case study, right? And then here's the track number two resources. And then once you've done that, it gets into sharing more information about sharing your case study in your portfolio. So video, reading, so creating your online portfolio. Again, they talk about setting up an account on GitHub, Kaggle, Tableau Public, if you want to go the route of like Medium, publishing articles and like really structuring it down, WordPress, or even setting up your website. That seems to be very popular these days. I know some people are doing that sort of thing, which is cool. To each their own. Whatever it is that you want to do to show off your handiwork, go do it. But that's week number 2. Week number 3, also optional, using your portfolio. I don't know how I feel about them making these things optional. It just seems, again, sort of like why? Why not just say, hey, if you're going to do this thing, we want you to do it. If you want to get the certificate, you got to, agree that you've done these things. Whatever, they call them optional because I guess the things that they made optional, just to clarify, I'm not actually talking crap. The things that they made optional, it's sort of like the whole publishing. Maybe you're not comfortable doing that. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just want to have something to talk through with an employer, and you can do that 100%. I can tell you that I've had more productive discussions with people about work that they've done either in school as little side courses, side quests, or whatever you want to call it, in an interview situation where they don't actually show me anything, but having dialogue about it, I can tell whether they do or don't know what they're talking about, I don't need them to show me necessarily all the ins and outs. It's nice to have, not required. So in that sense, I guess I understand why they kind of made this stuff optional, because maybe you're not ready to publish your work, and that's totally okay. Don't feel obligated, but understand that while it may be scary up front, this community is usually super supportive, and they love to see other people doing cool stuff and giving advice, whether solicited or not. Usually it's always trying to lead towards a better end product. So if you finally do get the confidence up to share your work, don't be scared. people will generally be very supportive. So just basically don't let that hold you back. Okay, we get into the interview process. So this is a part, I wanted to gripe about this. I feel like I've gotten to a point where there's something I've got to complain about in every single course, and this is the one that I have here. So what they do here is they sort of set the stage for, this is what an interview process looks like. Okay, I would like to say that this is not, in fact, what every interview process looks like for an analyst position. In fact, maybe this is what it looks like at Google. Maybe this is what it looks like at larger companies who have proper HR departments, who have recruiters who are actually screening candidates and then sending them up the chain to various persons. But most companies, especially those that are early in the analytics build out phase, they've only got one analyst, or maybe they're trying to hire their first analyst, it's not going to be this structured. It's probably not going to follow this format here where, hey, this is the first part where you're going to get called by a recruiter and they're going to just walk through your resume, make sure that you sound like you've got it all together. I don't disagree with that part, but again, not every company has recruiters that are going to be doing this stuff. If you get reached out to by a hiring manager, they may just be setting up an interview straight away. You may not get this feel out question because they're just anxious to get resumes, okay? So this may or may not happen depending on the size of the company. Stage 2, the case study, no. Again, larger companies with more resources may immediately jump into the technical screening, which is what this effectively is. But I would say that 98% of the interviews I've either given or been in go this route, where stage 3, which they're calling optional, is what happens next, which is you go in, you sit down, and you have a mixture of behavioral and some technical questions that are asked, right? What they're trying to do is get you in front of a few different people who may be direct hiring management, maybe HR, maybe some combination of the two. But basically, you're sitting down with these people and you start to get to know them. They want to make sure that you feel like you're a good fit and that you have the technical acumen at least to get in and do some of the work. So I would actually argue that more commonly this happens next. A lot of companies don't have tests. They don't have the case study. It does happen 100%. Be prepared for that sort of thing. And this Capstone project will help you to do that. This whole program will help you to be prepared. But I've only been in a couple, again, of all of the interviews, there's only been a couple times that I've encountered something like this. And it usually happens if I feel, if it's happened to me, it's part of the process, usually, after I've already passed those initial hurdles. If it's something that I've issued, it's not necessarily front loaded. It's just kind of part of the process, because these things I don't view as a pass or fail, right? It depends on the role. It depends on the person. It depends on the potential I see, because I used to administer like an Excel test to a lot of people, which, by the way, you can check it out. I've got it on my website. I'll put a link in the description. But if you want to learn how to take that technical test, I'll give you a link to that. But we would administer it, and people who passed it, the technical part with flying colors, didn't necessarily get an offer because it either wasn't a good fit from a behavioral perspective, maybe their experience was just too different, or maybe things just didn't work out in another regard. But then people who didn't pass it, but who showed potential for being teachable, asking questions, and we had confidence that this person could ramp up very quickly, they might have gotten an offer, right? So these things are not pass-fail. Don't treat them like that. Don't freak out if you leave and you're like, man, I didn't ace that case study. Depends on the company, but in general, I would say don't sweat over that. They want to see how you think. They want to see how you work under pressure. And, are you teachable? Get their bearings on you, okay? So it doesn't really sound like I'm griping. I'm just trying to explain sort of my perspective on this. It's not as structured as it looks. And then decision making, and I don't want to get too much into this because that's going to be different at every company in general. But I will say that I am also, so I mentioned the Excel test. I'm also in the process of wrapping up what is going to be an analytics interview workshop. So we're going to go over the secrets of analytics interviews. I will also be sure to update this description when that course is available, but it's going to be coming very soon. And I'm really excited about that one because it's going to walk through a lot of this stuff and give you a behind the scenes look and cover all of this full spectrum that we're sort of talking about here. So quick plug to myself. Scenario video series introduction. So this is just, I'm not entirely sure this is what to say about this other than they talk about how to discuss. Oh, no, that's not what they're doing. So this is in the interview. What they do from here is they actually give you examples of what an interview scenario might look like. And I thought this was pretty cool. They have like these mock interview situations and show people how they would answer their questions and all that kind of stuff. So you can see it. There's something different about like reading it and seeing it. And up to this point, I've really appreciated both sides, but I really like the reading component. This case, it's fun to watch somebody in an interview situation. There's lots of value that you get from that. So I thought that was cool. And that's pretty much week number 3. There's some more tips. Obviously, if there's a job description, you want your resume to overlap with those skills, and you always want to quantify things and, take your work experience into consideration and come ready to ask questions of the person, right? This is interviewing 101. Week number 3 is wrapped, and now we're on to week number 4, and this is putting your certificate to work. So in case you missed it, somewhere in the middle of all of this, you've done the case study, right? So I think week number 2 was really like executing on the case study. Week 1 was sort of queuing it up. Week 2 was, actually executing. And then week number 3 is preparing for interviews. And now we're going to wrap the whole program up. So, hey, did you complete it? Yes or no? Congratulations on completing it. Now let's get ready to showcase your work. So these are all the things that you've done. These are things that you can use to update your LinkedIn profile, do all that fun stuff. Go collect your badges. It talks about how to sign up for their big interview platform. Once I had wrapped this up, I started getting emails about like the job boards and things like that. So if that's something that you were interested in when you pursued this bad boy, then that all comes once you're done. But that was it. That was the course. So now I just want to do a real quick recap of like the whole thing in a nutshell. So 8 courses. I think the only one that I didn't give 5 stars was ask questions to make data-driven decisions, I think was the one. Yeah, I gave that one a little bit of a ding just because I remember being somewhat disappointed in the fact that, hey, it wasn't all about that. They had a bunch of sidebar things that they talked about. It wasn't necessarily as focused as I would have liked. And I was really excited about that particular section. And so it was a little bit of a letdown. But overall, Google has done a very good job with this course. I would very much recommend it for anybody who is interested in doing this. Now, that said, who is this good for? They try to promote it as a substitute for a degree. I've said in other interviews and probably in some of these things that I don't know that that's ever going to happen, or at least not soon. It could, but what I feel like it's a substitute less for a degree in general, but more for a degree in analytics or computer science or something of a degree that is more specific to this field set. So what I mean by that is this program is going to be best for people who don't have the traditional educational background but want to get into analytics. Be that a student who just graduated with an unrelated degree, or a professional who has an unrelated degree and or career field who's looking to switch. So if you are in one of those buckets, then this would be a really good course for you to get that exposure, get that background, get some foundational skills, and then have this capstone project to point to and say like, look, I may not have the degree, or I may not have the work experience, I may not have any of those things, but I've gone out of my way to do this thing on my own. I've learned all of these skills. You can check out my portfolio. I can talk intelligently about this. I can talk about SQL. I can talk about Tableau. I can talk about R. I can use spreadsheets and yada, yada, yada. You understand the analytical process. You can see why those things would all be good for anybody. But if you've gone through a good program, you have that degree, chances are you've already taken courses where you've done some of these things and you've already gotten the exposure, so you can already talk about those things. If you cannot, this is a good course. This is a very good course for you to consider. And again, it's not like a lot of the others that are out there today that are very technical focused. I want to add one more piece of color to that. I've been reading, I read all the comments. I try to respond to everything that I see. I still get asked for answers, which is hilarious. I will not provide answers, but one very valid criticism that I saw recently was, I didn't think that, this isn't me, this is the comments, but there were people who did not believe that it went deep enough on the technical. I think that that's okay, because again, technical can be taught. There is enough technical foundation to let you explore and use and follow through, and you have something to show for it. The most important thing is really the context. That's speaking from somebody in my position. The most important thing is that the person has context, right? So if you have the understanding of what each, I keep going back to this, right? If you understand the different tools that are out there, how to use them, what they're good for, maybe what they're not so good for, and you have the mindset of an analyst, then you're an analyst, right? If it's not about being able to go super deep on every single tool that's out there. That's not what's important. What's important is your thought process. What is important, the tools don't make the analyst. You're the analyst. You use the tools, okay? So understanding that, the more you use the tools, the better you will be at using them, learning what they're good for, all that fun stuff. This course does a very good job of teaching you what those what some of those tools are and what they are used for. That to me is the most important thing when looking at a new analyst. Okay, and again, I have to remind everybody, this is a beginner course. This is a course designed for people who are interested in starting a career in data analysis. Okay, this is not for intermediate. This is not for advanced. This is for beginners. So all that to say, as a person who hires new analysts, what is important to me is that they understand what the role is, what an analyst does, why they do what they do, all of that stuff. Not that they're an expert in any one of these technical skills. That will come. That will come. All right. And with that, I think we're finally done. I think we're done here. So I hope you enjoyed. If you've watched all of these reviews, I applaud you for putting up with my face and voice for that long. But this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. If you're interested in seeing me walk through other courses, either on Coursera, Udemy, you name it, I'm more than happy to do that. I plan to do that, and just drop them in the comments. So, and with that, I do make new video content once every week, if not more, on all things data analytics careers. So if you're interested in that, please consider subscribing to my channel. Not everything is a course review. I do have other content that talks about tips for different things. I've covered what it means to be an analyst, how to think like an analyst, all of that fun stuff. So again, if you've got content ideas, I'd love to hear them in the comments. And with that, thanks for watching.